Hey guys, Darcy here. Today I want to go over a simple video on panning, alright? I had a friend hit me up, he's using Logic, he was doing something in panning, it wasn't working the way he wanted and wanted some advice. So I helped him out and I thought, man, this is something that a lot of people need to know. So let's jump into it, but quickly. Hopefully you're noticing a new look. We're trying out new things, new cameras, but more to come on that. So let's jump in here, okay? I have a sample that I pulled up from Splice. It's from the Chad Hugo pack, and it's interesting from a sound perspective, okay? There are sounds on coming in both of your ears a little differently. So take a listen, and then we'll just discuss it. All right, I want you to notice on your right ear, there's like some kind of percussion that's playing, and your left ear is like the snare. Just listen to that, okay? So they're separate from each other. One's more left, one's more right, okay? So now on my screen here in the bottom left corner, what you're gonna take a look at is the pan, okay? So I'm gonna switch back to what's called balance. Balance is the default setting inside of Logic, okay? You see how these all look like this? So when I pan left and I pan right, the green goes left to right, okay? Now, ignore the fact that this is how Logic does it. Your DAW will do it its own way. The point of this is to understand there's different ways of panning, okay? So with this way, balance, what it does is essentially when you pan one way or the other, if I pan to the right, it takes the left signal and it decreases the volume. If I go to the opposite end, it'll decrease the volume on the other end. So what I'm going to do is listen to, as I pan, like I'm going to pan left, listen to how the percussion on the right disappears. It almost entirely. There's a little bit of it in the left speaker, but it almost goes away entirely, and vice versa to the other way. So let's take a listen. Right? Now this has to do with how it's recorded, okay? The sounds aren't 100% one way or the other, but it's decreasing it dramatically, okay? That may be a desired effect, right? You may go, oh, I like this loop. I want mostly everything on the left, and then I'm gonna put other instruments in, and I don't want as much on the right, and that's the vibe that I want, okay? But listen again, I'm just gonna do it one more time, and think about, is that what you want, for instance? Is that the vibe that you want? Okay, so there's another way called stereo pan, which is a more obvious way that you would think about panning. So when I select stereo pan, we see that we have this like full color around the spectrum or around the circle. When I pan left or right, it's going to shift the sound from the, say I pan left, the sound from the right speaker will start to shift into the left speaker and push the sound in the left like further left, and vice versa the other way. So let's do that and listen. All right, so things to notice. When I pan right, the percussion starts to become front and center and the snare goes further left. When I pan to the right, the snare comes front and center and the percussion goes more to the right. So let's do it again and take a listen. Okay, so you're getting an idea of like the difference between the two. One is just decreasing volume and allowing the other thing to exist. The other one is shifting it, okay? So think about when you're panning, which of the two do you want, right? It depends on what you are working on. Sometimes I like the balance type panning because with everything I have going on in the space, I almost kind of just want to get rid of everything in the right and leave what's left in the left. Leave what is left in the left. Great set of words there. But sometimes I don't, right? A lot of times I kind of want to shift the stereo. Now, one thing to notice in this particular Logic is that you have at the bottom here these buttons. When you highlight, they go, the white spots go bigger. It's kind of hard to see, but you click and you pull up and it reduces how wide the sound is, so it makes it more mono. So let's listen to what that does. And I gotta make it more wide. There we go. So it's reducing the stereo image, making it more mono, and you control how much. Now let's do that and then pan. Same idea as before, just not as wide. That's really all it's doing. Now I want to show you one more free tool that I've used in another video that I'm going to highlight a little bit more. So A1 Stereo Control by Alex Hilton, okay? This is essentially going to do the same thing as the stereo pan, but with a little bit more flexibility and a few more options you might want to think about in your panning, okay? And one thing to note right out of the gate, we have an input and an output. One thing you will notice is that I kept clipping, because when you start to pan and you change where the things lay, it can get louder. So you might need to reduce your input or increase your input and decrease your output. Just depends on your sound. Now, let's take a look at what we can do here. I'm going to start off with the same settings as, like, same idea of what we were doing before. So I'm just going to pan. So it's a little bit different in how it sounds, a little more subtle. It's not putting things quite as the right sound is up in front. It feels like there's a little bit in between the two, okay? And that's gonna give you a little bit different texture. Now let's try stereo width, increase and decrease. So one thing this does that Logic doesn't do is increase the stereo width beyond 100%. It only allows you to decrease it. So let's play with that. So you notice that, like, this still doesn't sound like the way Logic does, and it has a kind of its own sound and how it treats it. Different stereo control plugins will do different things. So that's something you have to learn about the flavor of what it does and whether or not you like it. Now I'm going to do one more thing with this, okay? Well, actually, I'm going to show you a couple more things real quick. One thing is you can swap left and right. So let's do that. That feels triggering to do that with this sample, but regardless. So you can flip that, you can do phase flips, you can make the whole thing mono, or just make the stereo width 0. But there's one more thing I want to show, okay? I'm gonna make this stereo width wider, and then I'm gonna use the safe bass. Safe bass, what it does is allows you to say everything, it's kind of like a high pass, but when it does, it takes everything below the frequency that you set it at, and it makes it mono. So really important if you're, let's say you're dealing with the stereo image of your entire mix, right? Probably shouldn't just do this if you're not familiar, but you can make it wider, but you want everything under a certain frequency to be mono, like your bass, so that it doesn't get messed up. In this case, we have a kick drum, so we don't want it to get wider. We want everything above it to get wider. So let's run it and see how it feels. So you notice as I'm playing around, and I'm actually gonna bring this output down because I think I'm peaking, that what happens is that it feels a little bit more glued because the bass, the kick drum, is not moving so far left and right. So I'm gonna click the safe bass on and off and listen to the kick, how it goes to the left speaker and then it feels more center, and it feels like all the snares and the hi-hats and the percussion stays wide, but the kick stays center when the safe bass is on. And again, it's coming down to what you're trying to create, but knowing what you can do is important. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It was pretty straightforward, but it's about understanding the different ways that you can pan. As you even saw, there was an option called binaural panning. I'm just not even gonna try it. It's for 3D sound stuff, and I don't think it really applies to most music. Also, I just don't have enough knowledge to explain it to anybody. But understand the different panning tools, understand how your DAW does panning. You should just pull in a sample like this one that's kind of got different sounds on the left and right, and mess with it and see how it treats it. Pull in the plugins you have and see how they treat it. Different plugins treat things differently, and when you get a better sense of what it can do or when's the best time to pull that plugin, you can get different results than sometimes when you just use, say, the stock stuff and it doesn't sound the way you want, or maybe the stock stuff is perfect and the other ones are doing too much. So either way, just something for you to know and learn and try. If you happen to find this video helpful, please like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Peace, y'all, and I'm out.